Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I recently posted a video about my summer internship at Stanford, and a lot of you wanted to know how I got that opportunity. So today I'm going to be sharing how I got this internship without any networking. I've also previously made a video about how to get research opportunities in my Being Pre-Med playlist, so go check that out. I think you'd find it really helpful. So I specifically am going to speak to internships that are more targeted towards pre-meds because I myself am pre-med. There are several routes to obtaining a summer internship. A lot of students will network with alumni, with professors, apply through programs, and some will just cold email. So my internship application process actually encompassed, I think, all three of those main ways of obtaining an internship. At first, I used a platform called Handshake, which Brown has. I think other universities probably have it as well. It's a platform which you can search up a bunch of different internships based on the field and location. And on this platform, there tend to be internships that are specifically alumni-connected internships. So programs that are directed by people who have graduated from your institution. So Handshake was a good first resource to sort of look at various different programs that I wouldn't have been aware of previously. So I'm trying to think back to like how many internships I applied for. For actual programs, I probably applied for like 4 to 5, something like that. Like I don't even remember the rejections that I got. For one program, I was sort of deferred, I guess you could say. I didn't get the opportunity for this summer, but they actually offered me a spot for next summer. Another reason why you should apply for as many internships as you can is because you might secure something for next summer, and that gives you a lot more freedom and options. And then I also applied for a national research grant, but I didn't get it. I also applied for the UTRA at Brown, which is the undergraduate teaching and research grant. And I got accepted to that and was actually planning on doing research at Brown over the summer, but due to an extenuating circumstance, I ended up having to last minute cold email, I think about probably like 15 to 20 professors at Stanford because I needed to be home for the summer. Probably got around 4 replies, 2 yeses, and then 2 no's because they just didn't have space in their lab. I also wanted to note that your freshman year of college, it's really difficult to get an internship, regardless of what field you're in. So don't feel super discouraged. You could always travel, take a class. Generally, you want to start looking for internships as early as you can, probably around winter break, so that you can notify professors in advance to prepare the recommendation letters, because I think usually they would recommend notifying them probably at least 2 to 3 weeks before the deadline, because at that time of year professors are super busy, and unfortunately they will turn some people down because of the time pressure. When looking through internships, you want to think about what kind of experience you want to have. So do you want to do something in public health that's more community-based, or do you want to do research? I think for pre-meds, it's really common for people to do research over the summer, but don't feel like you have to limit yourself to that. Another thing you want to consider is funding. So a lot of internship positions for pre-med undergrads, for example, in research, are not paid, especially if you go to another institution. Like I'm at Stanford right now, but I'm a student at Brown. I don't get paid by Stanford, and because I found out too late and emailed too late, I wasn't able to apply for scholarships. So even if you're planning on cold emailing, make sure you find different scholarship programs or ways of funding through your university. For example, at Brown, if you want to do research at another institution over the summer, they do have a scholarship called the Link, I believe. And hand in hand with that, try to look for universities that are within commuting distance, or places that you know you'll have housing. So for me, my choices in terms of where I would do research were either Brown or Stanford. Stanford made sense for me because I don't have to pay for housing, I get to commute, and it has a great research program, especially for CT surgery, which I'm interested in. Make sure you're applying to labs that you're actually interested in. Like, you want to make the most out of this experience and actually learn a lot, especially because your future research experiences will probably build on the foundational knowledge that you gain from your first internship. You want to pick the field that you're actually interested in. Apply to a variety of labs, wet lab, clinical, computational. There's a huge diversity of like different types of research that you could do. So getting into how I got this internship opportunity at Stanford specifically, I set up a spreadsheet of all the people I wanted to email, so all the labs that I would potentially want to join. Some of these were clinical, most of these were basic science, wet lab research. Because I started applying really late, I think probably April to May-ish, I definitely recommend you email earlier because at that point, most professors will say that their labs are full already. So because I was applying super late, I was just trying to get out as many emails as possible. I want to say I probably sent like 5 a week. So it's really important to keep track of this spreadsheet because once a professor does not reply for about a week, you want to follow up with them and say, hey, I wanted to restate my interest in joining this lab. Do you have any positions open? La la la. Following up is really, really important. I know some professors that won't even reply to the first email. They want the student to actually like follow up and be persistent and proactive in like asking to join the lab. So don't give up if you don't get a reply within a week. And another thing is, if you get a rejection, that's actually great. It means that like you were good enough to actually like reply to and say no, like unfortunately we don't have spots in our lab. So don't be discouraged by rejections. It's actually a good sign in this case. So to recap, keep an Excel spreadsheet with the emails of all the labs that you want to email. In the spreadsheet, make sure to include a link to their lab website or publication so that you can reference it when you're sending the email. And also include the date that you sent the email to the professor so that you know when to follow up a week later. Staying organized and being persistent in emailing and communication is extremely important. All right, so now that we've got the organization, sort of logistics out of the way, what do you actually include in the email? More is not more in this case. I think professors are so busy that they're really just gonna skim through like the first few lines of your email, so don't bother writing paragraphs about why you want to join this lab. I think the most important details to include are, actually, I'm just gonna include a sample email that I've sent to a professor. Usually my emails open up with something like this. Hello, Dr. Blank. I'm May, an undergraduate student researcher at Brown University. I read your paper on blah, 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 blah. And given that this issue is super prevalent and important, I think this is an area of study that I would like to become involved in. I'm very interested in cardiothoracic surgery and wanted to inquire if you have any openings in your lab for a full-time researcher this summer. Note that I said full-time researcher. This shows commitment. And 2, if you really want to sell yourself, say that you'll work unpaid, or at least say that you're like under some scholarship or something so they don't have to worry about funding you. Essentially, the first paragraph that I open up with is who I am, what school I go to, and stating my interest in a specific paper that I read to show that I actually took the time to like try to understand what the research is. Professors have told me like, as long as you sort of try to like show that you understood their paper, even if you like completely don't understand it, that's like all they look for. And then in the final line of the first paragraph, I just talk about how their line of study is compatible and converges with my academic and career pursuits. And then in the next paragraph, I talk about my research experience. So I say, in terms of my research experience at Rhode Island's Cardiovascular Research Center, I've been studying the impact of blah, 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 a bunch of words that you probably don't care about. I've also interned at Stanford prior, blah, 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 and then I talk about my experience at Stanford before. My relevant coursework includes biomaterials, biochemistry, blah, 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 blah. I have a copy of my official transcript if you are interested. Honestly, I think including all of this was kind of overkill. Like, if you don't have any prior research experience, don't feel like that's a huge obstacle. I don't think professors these days really expect you to have prior research experience, especially like as a high schooler. Like, you are definitely not expected to have done research in high school. More so, they're looking for commitment. If you're applying for a research position during the school year, you want to emphasize that you are willing to commit a certain number of hours per week or stay for your entire undergrad, whatever, even if you like aren't necessarily going to. You want to demonstrate that you're committed enough where like the time that they take to train you will eventually pay off. So in the second paragraph, I talk about my research experience at Rhode Island's Cardiovascular Research Center. So it shows that there's a continuity between my past research and what I would be doing at this lab. I also included my relevant coursework, so it definitely, if you don't have any research experience, you might want to include your prior coursework because it shows. For a research internship, the pertinent ones would be something like biomaterials, biochemistry, organic chemistry, etc. You just want to show that you have like a foundational understanding so that teaching you lab techniques won't be too difficult. And then in the last line I said I have a copy of my official transcript if you want to see it, but like they're not gonna ask for it. And the last paragraph is, if you have any opportunities available at your lab this summer, I would be excited to work with you on your research. For more specific qualifications and experience, I have attached my resume to this email. I will be in the Bay Area from blah to blah. If you have time to speak further, I'd be happy to talk to you over the phone. The only thing that you really need to attach to the email is a resume. I don't think it's even really worth writing a cover letter. Now that I think about it, most of my cold emails that have been successful just didn't include a cover letter. I just had my resume attached. So because you're applying for a specific internship, you want to reorder your resume so that the most relevant experiences are at the top. You obviously want to include your educational background, so what college you go to or what high school you go to, your GPA. I also included my interests, my contact information. So I think what might be helpful for research specifically is putting what skills you have on your resume. So I put like immunohistochemistry, working with mice, stuff like that. And if you have coding experience, definitely include that on your resume. Different software that you've used, so stuff like ImageJ if you've worked in a lab before. Definitely include if you have experience with statistical analysis, using something like R or MATLAB. And I also included like languages, but I don't think that really matters as much. For the meat of the resume, you want to include your experiences in research or something medicine related. So the ones that I included were my research experience at Brown. I also included a course that I took that consisted of me designing and implementing a stress management tool. So sort of like community-based research. And my last experience point was a social needs screening internship. So that sort of just showed that I have clinical experience working with patients as well. The rest of the resume, I doubt that they really even looked at besides like the heading, but I included like my leadership and campus community experience. So this is the stuff that's not super directly related to research, but stuff like being a women in science and engineering mentor, writing science lessons for high school students, stuff like that. All right, I think that pretty much covered all of the bases in terms of how I applied for this internship. In summary, I just cold emailed a ton of professors and followed up when they didn't reply for a week. Make sure to include your resume and keep the email really brief. You want to be as concise as possible while also stating your interest specifically in that lab's research. You want to read their publications. You don't necessarily need to understand it, but you just want to provide an indication that you like cared enough to read like the abstract of their research. And if you're at the point where you get a reply from a professor, you want to make sure that you both are on the same page in terms of what you expect from this internship. You want to make it clear that you perhaps want to work on an independent project. You don't just want to like help around in the lab. Make it clear that you're looking for a really dedicated mentor to teach you so that you actually understand what you're doing. More likely than not, your email will be forwarded to a postdoc in the lab, and you want to set up a call with them to sort of get on the same page and talk about what projects you could potentially work on. It really sucks if you get to lab not knowing what to expect and you end up just doing a bunch of manual labor for them and not really gaining as much as you can out of that experience. I hope this video was helpful. Don't be discouraged if you don't have any prior research experience. You can definitely cold email and still get an opportunity. Just remember to be organized, make an Excel spreadsheet, hold yourself accountable, and send out a ton of emails. If you're sending out less than like 15, then you need to do more. Ultimately, persistence, I think, is the major factor here. You just need to like keep following up. And of course, all this advice definitely carries over to getting a research internship during the school year. Alright, if you found this video helpful, please leave a like so I know to make more of these kinds of videos. Leave a comment down below with how you're doing, any other video suggestions you want me to do, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!